Greetings all, Ferrari 601 here. Welcome back to Flight Simulator 2020 and welcome to Logan Airport, just outside Boston, Massachusetts. Yes, we have got the big 748 today and we're going to be flying this thing for a reasonably short semi-regional flight, I suppose you can say, down to Washington, D.C. at Reagan National, and we have a catering truck stuck through our number 4 engine. That is not going to be problematic, I do hope. Yeah, little glitches here on the ground, but we've got the jetway connected and the aircraft is powered off right now, which we're going to have to remedy if we're going to get it to go anywhere. So, the cockpit it is for us. We have ground power available, so we flip that on, and now miraculously everything comes to life. We have got an IFR flight plan filed already, which means that hopefully everything is just going to be loaded into our primary flight computer, and we should have a route that is preset. And then it's just a question, yep, there we go. Then it's just a question of setting up the autopilot to follow that route. I don't know what our departure runway is going to be. We are scheduled for runway 1 at Reagan, but things can change, as we well know. First off, though, we got to get this thing running on some internal power, so we'll get our battery up. Standby power will be set to auto, and we need an APU. So before we start an APU, we will start our beacon light there, and we'll get some fuel pumps running. Let's get all of them up because we're going to need all of them eventually. APU start. And APU should be coming online shortly. Obviously, everything else shut down for the moment. No engines. Fuel valves aren't even open yet for the engines. Let's start talking to ground. We'll start to get some clearance going here. First of all, we're going to disconnect the jetway.
Boston ground Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray.
Watch that retract here.
The jetway from the aircraft.
There we go. Yes, as the jetway runs through the tug. Hopefully that's not going to hamper our ability to get a pushback. Yeah, as good as this sim is, there are a few things that could be worked out, such as the truck that remains parked in our number 4 engine. However, the jetway is disconnected, and I guess we should start talking to clearance. So, let's talk to clearance.
Boston ground Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray ready to copy IFR clearance to Washington. Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray
12,000.
to Washington Airport has filed. Takeoff runway 33 left climb and maintain
12,000
feet. Departure frequency is 133.0 squawk 2714.
Roger.
Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray cleared to Washington Airport has filed. Takeoff runway 33 left climb and maintain 12,000 feet. Departure on 133.0 squawk 2714.
2714.
X-ray readback is correct.
Good.
Contact ground on 121.9 when ready to taxi.
All right. We've got our APU on and running the airplane. Next, get our hydraulic systems armed. Not going to start engines yet. We have our beacon on. Turn on our taxi lights and our strobe nav. Runway turn off lights. Not that we need these yet, but we'll do it. Get a taxi. Ground services, let's get a pushback first.
Boston ground Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray requesting pushback. Boeing November November 781 Echo X-ray pushback request accepted.
Right, so the pushback tug is not damaged by the jetway going through it. Release the parking brake, and remember our directional controls here are going to be mirrored from the cockpit, obviously. And off we go. Let's see, how far back do we need to be here? I don't know which direction we're going to have to turn yet, so get him to push us a little bit more, and then we'll be able to turn left or right as the situation may warrant. That's runway 4 left behind us. 133 is going to be elsewhere. All right, stop the pushback here, and that'll be all right.
Boston ground Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray requesting the end of pushback. Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray request to end pushback received.
Okay. That's fine. We'll set our parking brakes again. And it's time to get some engines up. We will start the inboard engines first, and we'll use them for taxi. Engines 2 and 3. Get starters up, and they will go through their automatic start sequence. We have got rotation there. And looking for fuel valves open. There we go. And EGT is ramping up. And 1 is also ramping up as we would expect. Look for an EGT plateau around 450, and then it'll drop off. The starters should disengage by itself. EGT run a bit higher. That's good. 2 clicks, starters are out. EGT down to 500. All right. That's fine. Let's talk to ground control here.
Boston ground Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray with Echo ready to taxi IFR. Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray taxi to and hold short of runway 33 left using taxiway Alpha Echo cross runway 4 left Echo Papa Delta cross
have to turn around, aren't we?
Delta Charlie cross runway 27 Charlie. Contact tower on 132.225 when ready.
Well, that's fun. Right. We're gonna have to turn right around.
Runway 33 left by a taxiway Alpha Echo cross runway 4 left Echo Papa Delta cross runway 4 right Delta Charlie cross runway 27 Charlie Boeing 1 Echo X-ray.
Right, well, that's pretty circuitous, however. Let's get on with it. Should have enough of a turning radius here to get flipped around. Got a follow me car? No, it's not. I mean, it could be, but it's not. Okay. Come on, a little more. we won't be holding at any of the runway intersections. We'll just be blowing through because who cares? So I'm well aware that my taxi speed is technically illegal. Don't care. And they have us following quite a route to get to where we need to get to. All right, 4 right. Cross the runway here. Heading preloaded in there is 331. That'll be okay for our runway heading, I suppose. I'm going to get some of our autopilot configured here. Speed hold at 250 for departure. And of course, we'll maintain below 250, below 10,000. Next things, let's get our power system taken care of here. Generators are on for engines 2 and 3 already, and I believe they're pre-selected for 1 and 4. It's runway 27 and 9. The cool thing about a plane like the 747 is when you got 4 engines, you don't need to run all of them on the ground. Save a little bit of gas if you're into that sort of thing. And we are basically where we need to be. Adjusting the brakes out. It's pretty good. We'll hold short here while we get ourselves sorted out with our outboard engines. And our parking brake set, and we'll get our fuel valves open for engines 1 and 4, and we will get some starters up for 1 and 4. CNN1 RPM building, and that looks good. Next, with our co-pilot MFD, can't adjust these independently here. You can do that independently in the 787, but not here in the 74. Oh well. So we'll set our range out for, I don't know, initially we'll do 20 nautical miles, and then we'll be playing with that as we go along. They have us turning a hard right here to get turned around on the runway, I guess. Got a light off on 1 and 4, and starters disengaged. That's good. So they have us turning a hard right and then turn it around, obviously, to face down the runway. We'll follow, why not? All 4 engines are now synced up for the most part. This is a stupid idea. Why are they telling us to do this? I don't know. But we'll follow only because I don't want to have that landmark nav aid up the entire flight, because that's going to be annoying as you know, whatever. differential thrust here to turn us. Suppose I should talk to the tower and tell them we're on the runway. Yeah. Let's go.
Boston Tower, Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray, ready for IFR departure, runway tree left. Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray, cleared for takeoff, runway tree left.
Okay, well that's good that we're clear because I'm on a runway.
Cleared for takeoff, runway tree left, Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray.
Okay, we're gonna set our anti-ice to auto on all counts. Only thing we're not gonna do is turn on the window heat yet. Turn off our taxi lights. Turn on our navs and strobes. Guess they were already on. Ice light. We'll turn on the logo light. Turn on our engine bleed here. So we can get some pressurization. We'll turn off the APU bleed and we'll turn off the APU. Generators on all 4 engines coming on. APU is offline and shutting down. Okay, flaps are down to 20. It's a little bit much for takeoff, but we're loaded up with fuel. And we'll confirm our heading is good enough. We're set for altitude 12,000 here, and I'm going to preset a vertical speed. We'll do 2,000 feet per minute out of here, and then we'll, bring it onto the autopilot. And hopefully we'll just start following the guidance. Parking brakes released. Throttle up to about 50-ish%, 57.4. All symmetrical, throttle up. There's Toga. It's 50 knots. $80 knots. 100. It's 140, 150, 155, E1. Rotate. Positive rate. Gear up. Flaps back to 10. And we're going to set up our AP command. Vertical speed. 2,000. And LNAV is selected.
133.0 for Boeing 1 Echo X-ray.
Rate of climb is coming up.
Boston departure, Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray is climbing through 1,000 feet for 12,000 feet.
Auto throttle is armed.
Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray, Boston departure, continue to Papa Victor Delta as planned. Altimeter 29.92.
Right.
Boeing 1 Echo X-ray climb
180.
flight level 180. Climb and maintain flight level 180, Boeing 1 Echo X-ray.
Okay, 180. Going to get a lot of instruction here from ATC for the time being. And we're starting to level out of that turn. There's the airport, and there's downtown Boston. Hey. Bring the flaps up to 5. Auto throttle armed. And we have throttles. And we're turning onto course. Let's increase our range here. Papa Whiskey Delta, nope, Victor Delta is our first intersect. That is 37 nautical miles out. Bring our flaps to 1. We'll leave the leading edge slats extended for now. Get our weather radar up. There's little pockets of clouds out there to 80 nautical miles. Go a little bit further out. And starting to see not a whole bunch. I think we're going to turn that off. And just continue to climb out to 18,000. Go outside. There we go. That's a pretty picture. Very nice. I love the lighting in this. Obviously, you can see where the sun is, and all the reflections and shadows and everything. They just look absolutely fantastic. Fixed camera views. I think it's external 12. It gives us an interior right wing shot. It's not external 15. Yes, external 15. Yep, not 12. But that's a pretty nice shot. I like that. And right there, a good view of the leading edge slat still extended. Not a bad out the window shot. See a little bit of wing flex going on with some clear air turbulence, but all in all, very smooth ride so far. Back to the cockpit, everything is just copacetic here. We're at 8,400 feet climbing. When we get 10 grand, we will increase our speed. We'll set our auto throttles to maintain 340 to start with, and as we get higher up toward a cruising altitude of 33,000, we'll have to ramp that back a little. As the
X-ray contact Boston Center on 124.85. 124.85.
the relative density of the air decreases the higher up in altitude you get, which means that the actual speed over ground corresponds to a different Mach number. You don't want to be playing with the Reynolds number here on an airliner because you're going to get into instability, get into Mach tuck and things like that, and it's not good.
Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray Boston Center continue to Papa Victor Delta as planned. Altimeter 29.92.
Ultimately, you're going to see ground speeds show up here in the right-hand display. Right now you see ground speed at 277. With a true airspeed indicated of 279. Notice that our airspeed readout there, keyed airspeed, is 244 about. That is a direct function of the air pressure as it's being sensed by the air data ports on the outside of the aircraft. So we're at 11,000. We can increase our speed now. The speed limit below 10,000 is 250. See, the airplane is starting to play with pitch a little bit so that it can start to attain speed a little bit more quickly. We're going to retract our leading edge slats at this point. The airplane will start to trim to adjust for that, and then it will start to trim into our climb again. And you can see we're starting to get our nose back up, and we're going to start to get our rate of climb. Maintain around 2,000 feet per minute is what we've ordered. We're climbing at 18,000. This is a stepped climb up to cruising altitude again, which I scheduled to be 33. It should be 33, but they could tell us something different, may deviate slightly. And we're heading to that PVD beacon. 12,000 feet. Now, in 14 nautical miles is that first intersect that we have with that PVD nav beacon. The airplane will turn to the right all by itself. Looks like we're going to have a heading of around 250, 260, so roughly westbound for the moment. Throttles now. So we're coming up to our commanded airspeed at 340. So that is going to be wonderful. So we're at our commanded airspeed. We're at 13,800 feet. Climbing very steadily here at 2,000 feet per minute. We can increase that if we want, but it doesn't bother me particularly just to hang out a little bit here. And back outside, to our window view. We can head back to our drone camera. The airplane should start its right turn all by itself, and we'll get a decent view of that. See, it is constantly making little adjustments in pitch trim so that it will maintain that rate of climb more or less. And then obviously we'll start to get aileron trim starting to come in as the airplane will go into a right bank. It will appear to turn screen left from our perspective. And there we go. Hearing a little bit of throttling there as the lift vector changes in the right bank. There we go, maneuver's done. The airplane will probably roll back over to the left a little bit to correct, but yep, there's a little bit of a left roll. Well, that's well and good. A little bit more of a correction to the right. Here, throttling down. All that is good. Back to the cockpit. 280. Let's see what I mean with this stepped ascent.
Climb and maintain flight level 280, Boeing 1 Echo X-ray.
280, airplane will come back into its 2,000 feet per minute rate of ascent at this point. We'll get some throttling again. There we go. And then you can see the tape there on the left display, the left side of the left display. You can see the red hash marks start at 360 and then they extend up infinitely. That is overspeed territory. There is a safety margin built into that, but you don't want to be getting into the red hash marks because then you start to play with the Mach, and you don't want to play with the Mach. You can get into a situation at very high altitudes, much higher than what we'll be playing at here. The service ceiling on this thing is around 43,000 feet. Absolute maximum test altitude, I think, is close to 60. But when you get into those high altitude, high speed regimes, you get into what they call a coffin corner, where if you accelerate, you're overspeed. If you decelerate, you break up the airflow over the wings and you stall. So ultimately, it leaves you with a very narrow window in which you can fly the airplane. We're seeing the top edge of that very narrow window right now with our display. You don't want to see red tick marks start coming up on the lower side, though, of the speed tape, because you get into that situation, now all of a sudden you've got a 20, 30 knot window where you can fly the plane. And that's not good if you need to do maneuvering. So we're going to try and stay away from that as much as possible, which is why we're going to be cruising at 33,000 here today. Not a terribly long flight. And there's no advantage really to trying to climb higher. By the time we would get up to 40, 43,000 feet, we'd have to descend, so it's no real point. Next intersect is 46 nautical miles, and you can see them right there. It's going to be a left turn a little bit. Let's see an intersect there with JFK. That is going to be Kennedy Airport, which we'll be flying pretty much directly overhead. Of course, we'll be at hopefully cruising altitude by that point. Also, you can see because we're now above 20,000 feet, we're going to start to get into standard atmosphere here in terms of how we calibrate our altimeter. 29902, that refers to inches of mercury in a barometer. So that's how the altimeter is going to be judging its indication to us. The altimeter is also, like the airspeed indicator, reading the ambient pressure outside the airplane. And it's going to read that ambient pressure in a proportion of the data that we feed into it in the form of the atmospheric pressure at sea level, or the reference pressure, in this case, standard atmosphere, 29.92 inches of mercury. Engines look great. Guidance looks great. Got 28,000 commanded. We're at 24,600 now. Mach 0.77. The Mach number starts to get more relevant the higher we go, as the airspeed, the physical airspeed, becomes less and less important. Because again, the higher you go, the less dense the air becomes, which means there's less air running into the pitot tubes on the side of the airplane to feed that data to the instruments. So you start to calculate at a Mach, because that Mach number is the absolute limit. You cannot exceed a certain Mach number. I believe that's 0.83 for this airplane. If you exceed 0.83, you start to play with transonic flow effects, which means certain areas of the wing are getting subsonic flow, other areas of the wing are getting supersonic flow. Subsonic and supersonic flow do not like each other, so you start to create shock waves at the boundary layers between the subsonic and supersonic flow. That causes total detachment of the airflow over the working surfaces of the wings, which can render them useless, which means we fall out of the sky, or we get uncommanded changes in attitude, like Mach tuck, where the nose will drop, or you can get a supersonic flow on one wing but not the other if you're in a bank, and you can get a rollover or things like that. So you avoid that by staying below that critical Mach number, which again is about 0.83 on this airplane. As we climb higher, the indicated airspeed will drop. The Mach number will not necessarily drop if we are not truly decelerating. You notice now there's a big discrepancy in our ground speed and our indicated airspeed there. Indicated airspeed is 328, 329. Our ground speed is 474. So as you get higher up, you accelerate. However, the airspeed, as detected, will drop. 330.
Climb and maintain flight level 330, Boeing 1 Echo X-ray.
Right, and that's going to be cruising altitude. They should not tell us to climb anymore.
Boston Center on 124.525. Going to 124.525, Boeing 1 Echo X-ray. Boston Center, Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray is climbing through flight level 290 for flight level 330.
Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray Boston Center. Continue to roll as planned.
Right. So you'll see now we're at Mach 0.823. And you can see that those red hash marks on the speed tape, the upper section of them, they were at 360. Now that they're about 355 right now. So we're at 30,000 feet, give or take. You can see that the indicated airspeed, the overspeed regime, has dropped, and that will continue to drop the higher you go. I believe at 43,000 service ceiling, it's around 340, 335, something like that.
128.1 Boeing 1 Echo X-ray. Boston Center Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray is climbing through flight level tree 10 for flight level tree 30.
Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray, Boston Center, continue to ROF as planned.
You can also see this happened at 30,000 feet automatically. The indicated airspeed / Mach display switched autonomously from indicated airspeed to Mach. So it's now going to fly the airplane on the auto throttles to a given Mach number rather than a given indicated airspeed. Again, because the indicated airspeed becomes less and less relevant the higher we go. In a little bit of a left turn, we align ourselves with our new leg. There is Long Island, New York. Coming up to 33,000, where we're going to level off. Airplane just doing the last bit of correction there for our turn. And we're just about leveling off here at 33,000 rather. We're at 32,940 at the moment. Airplane will start to accelerate again up to 0.846. 0.842 right now, so again, not too much more speed is going to happen. 0.846, 0.847 should start to see some throttling. We're at 0.856. Throttles are now happening, okay. Maintain a speed 0.856, 0.866. That's where we are now. .87. So this is transonic regime here. 0.877. Throttles are coming back. Again, you don't want to get into the red. 0.88. That's fine. And there we are. That's cruising altitude. 33,000 feet. You can see there, Long Island, New York. Yeah, understand.
132.3 Boeing 1 Echo X-ray. Boston Center Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray flight level 330.
Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray Boston Center, continue to use as planned.
Right. After this news intersection, we're going to have JFK, and we'll be flying more or less directly overhead. We zoom in, you can start to see a silhouette of the airport there, and we're going to be passing over, yeah, pretty much directly overhead. Speed is Mach 0.87, dialed in 0.866, so that's close enough. 33,000, indicated airspeed is 320. Have a look. 320 is our indicated airspeed. Ground speed is 503. True airspeed is 505.
X-ray contact New York Center on 121.125.
Going to 121.125, Boeing 1 Echo X-ray. New York Center, Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray, flight level 330.
Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray, New York Center. Continue to news as planned.
JFK is our next intersect at 21 nautical miles. Should be overhead JFK in about, I would say, 2 minutes. Take a look outside. We will be hopefully able to see JFK. Yeah. There it is. Right down below. And yep, there's Kennedy. Obviously, farther out, you can see Manhattan out there. Pull out here and get a look at Kennedy as we pass directly overhead. Very cool.
Boeing 1 Echo X-ray, contact New York Center on 118.975.
And in terms of being across the river, or across the bay as it were, there's the Raritan Bay.
118.975 for Boeing 1 Echo X-ray.
Obviously Manhattan, the East River, and the Hudson. And right here is Sandy Hook, New Jersey.
Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray, flight level 330.
Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray, New York Center. Continue to 810NAH as planned.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Flying over some areas that I know intimately. Can I see my house from here? Technically speaking, yes. Can I see pretty much anywhere I've ever been from here? Technically speaking, yes. Not entirely. Some of them are well beyond the horizon, but for the most part, yeah. Even from 33,000, lots of things plenty recognizable. Let's see, I know what that little pier is. I know what the other little pier is. Not a little pier, mind you, but I know what they are. Very cool. Out that way where the river narrows a little bit. Bridges, know what they are. Know what that other bridge is. Newark Airport, not terribly far up. Under the clouds. But it's there. Staten Island as well. Yeah, we're flying pretty much directly over. Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. Even from up here, I recognize landmarks that I see every day. Nice. Good job, FS. Good job indeed. Back in the cockpit, what is the situation? Looking good. Engines are happy.
Boeing 1 Echo, X-ray contact Washington Center on
All right.
124.775.
Going to 124.775 Boeing 1 Echo X-ray. Washington Center, Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray, flight level 330.
Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray, Washington Center. Continue to Romeo Bravo Victor as planned.
A little bit of the Barrier Islands of heading southbound to New Jersey. Hey, I know that place, I think. Is that? Yeah, pretty sure that's Lakehurst. Pretty sure that's Lakehurst. And it was there on May 6th, 1937, yeah. That we finally discovered that a hydrogen-filled dirigible was not that smart of an idea. Oh, cool. You could just, obviously the draw distance goes a pretty far ways. The render distance doesn't go quite that far in terms of actually seeing things, but looking eastbound, we're looking out over the ocean anyway. But it does give you the general impression of looking around for miles and miles. Love what they have done to integrate all of the terrain modeling, the scenery modeling, and of course the lighting system, the atmospheric modeling here. It's just great. You can even get mirages as you look out toward the horizon. There was one flight I did a number of weeks ago now where changeable conditions, where it was actually a little bit warmer at the higher altitudes than it was at the lower altitudes, and flying through that boundary layer, as you're starting to look through it edge on, you started to see refraction happen. And I did not think that this sim could model mirage effects, but it apparently can, and it does, and it's convincing. Really, really remarkable stuff. Very nice. And yeah, there it is on the 160 scope. That's KDCA out there. We're not all that terribly far out. Probably be getting a call to descend before too much longer. It'll be a stepped descent like it was a stepped ascent. Don't want to really start our landing preps yet. We are still a ways out from that. But I'm thinking about them. We will be attempting not an auto land, but we'll be doing an ILS approach, allowing the autopilot to take the airplane basically down to the runway. Will be dependent on the winds and depending on the visibility there at Washington. I think it'll be good. We'll be having the autopilot fly the plane down to 300 feet. 240. There's the descent call.
Descend and maintain flight level 240, Boeing 1 Echo X-ray.
.240 is set. Rate of descent is about 1,800 a minute.
Boeing 1 Echo X-ray, contact Washington Center on 125.45.
See, the engines have throttled back.
125.45 Boeing 1 Echo X-ray.
Oh, that is as expected, and again, it's going to try and maintain as best as it can the airspeed, or in this case, the Mach number that we've inputted.
Washington Center, Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray is at flight level 315, descending flight level 240.
Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray, Washington Center. Continue to Oscar Delta as planned.
You'll also see our ground speed and our airspeed begin to reconcile as we get lower. Right now, our ground speed is 504 and our airspeed is 334. As we get lower, there becomes more and more of a one-to-one correspondence between our indicated airspeed and our ground speed. So basically what we were talking about on the way up, you'll start to see that happen again in reverse. A little bit of a right turn. At some point, our auto throttle is going to switch from the Mach number back to indicated airspeed. If it doesn't, I will do it manually. The overspeed ticker is starting to retreat back up above 360. Again, that's expected as we drop lower. And there we go. Indicated airspeed is now the standard by which the auto throttle will fly our airspeed. So we'll set that to 350. Engines are throttling back. Mach number becomes less relevant now. We're Mach 0.854, 351 knots indicated. Now we're zoom in. There's the 80 scope, and don't have any real.
Boeing 1 Echo X-ray, contact Washington Center
Yes.
on 132.525.
Going to 132.525, Boeing 1 Echo X-ray.
Gonna say don't have any real weather concerns. Clouds look fine.
Washington Center, Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray is at flight level 265, descending flight level 240.
We're at 80 nautical miles. I'm gonna throttle back here. Engines will drop to idle. I am gonna set 250 knots to maintain because we're at 80 nautical miles out now. The airplane will very gradually decelerate. Remember, we're still descending and we will continue to descend. However, with the engines back down to basically idle, eventually air resistance will catch up to us. Again, less air resistance the higher we go. So as we get to lower altitudes, we'll get denser air and more braking effect from the air. Obviously, we have our spoilers if we need them. Probably going to get another step call to descend again. .330 knots, and decelerating ground speed is 450.
Boeing 1 Echo, X-ray descend and maintain flight level 180.
180.
Descend and maintain flight level 180, Boeing 1 Echo X-ray.
Only 100 a minute. If we know where to look, probably be able to see DC. Not quite recognizable yet.
Boeing 1 Echo, X-ray contact Washington Center on 132.55.
All right, some more radio handoffs. That's going to happen more frequently now that we're getting close.
Going to 132.55, Boeing 1 Echo X-ray. Washington Center, Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray is at flight level 220, descending flight level 180.
Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray, Washington Center, continue as planned.
All right. Notice we're not really decelerating anymore in terms of indicated airspeed. That's because we're in a dive, and as we dive, we gain. Well, we exchange our potential energy in the form of altitude to kinetic energy in the form of airspeed. So at this point, with our rate of descent and our given altitude with the air density, they basically cancel each other.
7 miles northeast. Descend and maintain 12,000 feet. Expect
12,000.
ILS runway 1 approach. Boeing 1 Echo X-ray descend.
2,500. Okay, this is what I was afraid of.
2,900 feet. Expect vectors ILS runway 1 approach Boeing 1 Echo X-ray.
Didn't want to get this close and then suddenly get that big of a drop. So we're going to bring our spoilers back into the flight detent here all the way. We're going to descend to 2,500 feet from 19,000. That's going to take a little while, so we're going to have to really drop our airspeed down. We're going to disarm the auto throttle. We're going to bring our throttles all the way back to idle, and we have done. Ground speed is 370, indicator airspeed is 294. I'm going to get our auto throttle pre-selected to 210 knots. However, we'll maintain idle thrust for a time now. What the simulator's ATC doesn't do very well is get you slowed down and down fast enough before you intersect your approach. So we need to try and preempt it by slowing us down ourselves long before we get too close. So the airport is not on the 40 scope yet. We're at 15,000 feet and coming down to 2,500, so we're going to be well within limits, I do believe. Airspeed is 268, ground speed 323. Coming down to our flaps 1 detent, which will extend the leading edge flaps, which will help us slow down a little bit faster. Flaps 1. Now you can see the overspeed ticker comes right down to 290, 285 or so. We continue to decelerate now. I can bring our spoilers back in. We can bring them up to the arm detent. And the airplane at this rate of descent basically wants to maintain 250 knots, which is exactly what I want. Also at this point, I'm going to configure the auto brake. Set it for auto brake 2. And that will apply brakes automatically when the airplane touches down. Need a little bit of spoiler. Bring it back to the flight detent. Coming past 10,000 feet. So that 250 knot speed limit now applies once again. There goes 10,000. Flaps 5. Yeah, Chesapeake Bay, everybody. $7,500. Looks like we're going to be all right.
Boeing 1 Echo X-ray contact Potomac approach on 119.85.
119.85 Boeing 1 Echo X-ray.
Auto throttle arm. Potomac approach.
Potomac approach Boeing November
Throttles.
781 Echo X-ray is out of 6,400 feet for 2,500 feet.
Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray Potomac approach. Continue as planned. Altimeter 29.902.
Flaps 10. We are at flaps 10. 214 knots. Airplane trimming nicely. 4,700 feet. And we have got our ILS frequency up on the PFD. Airplane will turn a little bit left, I would think, to help us intersect that. .3,500 feet coming down. Getting a little bit of a fugoid motion here as the airplane is trying to reconcile its airspeed with its pitch attitude. 3,000. Throttles in a moment. And there are the throttles. Now in a high drag configuration with flaps 10, so the airplane's going to need more engine power to maintain speed. But that is all expected. 2,600 feet. The airport is about 15 nautical miles out to roughly our 3 o'clock. Can we see it yet? Not quite yet. I'm actually going to overfly the airport a little bit in terms of heading south. We loop around in a 180-degree turn, roughly, and then we land on runway 1. Such is the plan. Now you can kind of see, in a different situation, but the same concept that I talked about on ascent, about the coffin corner, you can see that we've got an overspeed ticker at about 243 knots or so. We've got an underspeed ticker at 177, something like that. So that's our window now. We have a narrow window in which the airplane can fly in this configuration. We're flaps 10, 210 knots. And you can see that we basically can go to 240 knots and be okay, and go down to about 175 knots and be okay. Outside of that envelope, we're going too fast, we're going to cause structural damage, and we go too slow below 175 or so, and we stall. So that 240 down to 180 is basically our window in which we have to maneuver. Obviously, as we continue to change the airplane's configuration, eventually we'll come to flaps 20 and then flaps 25 for landing. We'll bring the gear down, and that will extend our operating window in the negative direction so we could fly slower and still be okay. That's the Potomac River. Eventually out there you're going to see the airport, but again, not quite yet. That's it. That's it right there. There we go. Washington Monument out there. So we're going to be making that turn to the right in another minute or so. We're really not far out. And then we should be lining up on the runway in terms of the runway heading. So we'll be on the extended center line. We will not be on glide slope yet. We'll intercept the glide slope. And then with the autopilot, I'm going to switch from the LNAV mode to the approach mode. That will then maintain a 3-degree glide slope down to the runway, extending that center line into the sky to intersect with our flight path.
Boeing 1 Echo X-ray, you are 18 miles east of Washington. Maintain present heading and altitude. Contact Washington Tower on 134.35.
Maintain present heading and altitude. Tower on 134.35 Boeing 1 Echo X-ray. Washington Tower, Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray 18 miles southeast inbound ILS runway 1 approach.
Boeing November 781 Echo X-ray Washington Tower. Cleared ILS runway 1 approach. Altimeter 29.9 or 2 and 282 at 7.
282 at 7.
Cleared ILS runway 1 approach Boeing 1 Echo X-ray.
Okay, so we're going to continue to allow the autopilot to fly the plane around the loop. We'll intersect the glide slope at some point. When we intersect the glide slope, we will switch from the LNAV mode to the approach mode, and then the airplane will start to descend. It will descend maintaining these little bugs here on the PFD. You can see we have a bug down there, a purple bug on the lower side on the horizontal axis. That's off to the extreme left right now. We've got a purple bug on the vertical axis to the upper side of that vertical axis. Those are our bugs that indicate where the glide slope is. So right now we are well left to center, and we are below the glide slope. We will intersect laterally first as we turn onto that glide slope, which will happen in a few seconds here. So we start that gradual right turn, and then we'll intersect vertically. We want to maintain both of those bugs right dead center where the tick mark is. We've started that right bank now a little bit. When that vertical bug is dead flat against the artificial horizon, that's when we go into approach mode and the airplane starts to descend. At the same time, we'll be playing with our speed, initially with the auto throttle, and then we will turn off the auto throttle. We'll do that at about 800 feet, 500 feet. We'll make the determination when we're on approach, and then we'll take over manual control of the throttles. And then, assuming everything is good and these conditions look excellent, we'll turn off the autopilot entirely at just 300 feet above the deck, and then we manually touch down. So our auto brake is armed at step 2. Our spoilers are in the arm D10. The last major thing that we'll do will be to deploy the landing gear. And we'll do that once we're more or less established on centerline. Because once we bring the gear down, it really imparts a lot of drag onto the airplane. And we're going to want to make sure that we're in a position where we can commit to a landing before we do that. Last radio transmission we're expecting is going to be a landing clearance. We should receive landing clearance after we're on glide slope and on center line. So the airplane's still doing all of this autonomously. On the 10 nautical mile scope, you can see the last bit of our turn, which we're about, I don't know, 65, 70% complete. Very, very nice. Okay, so we can see that we're starting to intercept the runway center line, just off to the left. And we're starting to intercept the glide slope. Gonna lower our speed now to 200 knots. We're gonna go to flaps 20. Auto throttle is responding, coming on to the center line. So we've captured the center line. We're waiting on the glide slope. Once we capture the glide slope, we will go into that approach mode. So we're just about there. Another few seconds and we'll be intercepting that glide slope. And glide slope intercepted. Now the airplane is descending. We're going to descend roughly to maintain that glide slope. Throttled back to hold 190 knots. And there's the runway in sight, directly ahead of us. There's 2,000 feet, gear coming.
Boeing 1 Echo X-ray cleared to land runway 1. Wind 28.
It's the landing clearance. Gear down.
Cleared to land runway 1 Boeing 1 Echo X-ray.
It'll be our clear to land. Radio altimeter is now what we're going to be using. 1,600 feet. Radio altimeter is using radar data to determine our actual altitude over ground. The barometric altimeter uses atmospheric pressure. So that's going to show your altitude above mean sea level. Your radio altimeter shows your physical altitude above the ground, which is not always necessarily at sea level. In this case, it basically is because we're on the Potomac River. However, that's not always the case. In fact, it is most frequently not the case. Let us slow down a bit more. 180 knots, flaps 25. Goes 1,000 feet. Throttle's responding. Look at this, we're on glide slope on center line, the gear's down. I'm showing 2 reds and 2 whites. That's exactly what we want to see. Coming down. There's our decision height, 500 feet. Looks good. We're going to continue. Auto throttle disarmed. I have manual throttle. 400. Stand by for the autopilot disconnect. 300. Autopilot disconnect. We're coming down. 200. I have the airplane. Throttle back. Idle. A little high. 50, 40, 30, 20. A little bit of ground effect float. Down. Down. Thrust reverse. Auto brake is on. Going to full manual braking here. Used up more runway than I wanted, but that's okay. We'll turn at the end of the runway.
Boeing 1 Echo X-ray, turn next taxiway.
Spoiler retract.
Boeing 1 Echo X-ray, exit runway when able. Boeing 1 Echo X-ray, contact ground on 121.7.
Going to 121.7 Boeing 1 Echo X-ray.
All right. So it's telling us that we have a parking area all set up already. That's general aviation parking. That's not sufficient for a 747. Oh well. That's okay. I was hoping we'd go to an actual gate, but instead we're going to park up next to a Cessna. In the meantime, start the APU. And we're just going to stop right here because we're not where we really should be, but it's where they told us to go. Oh, well. So now the APU is available, and we're going to switch over to the APU. We're going to turn off our generators on the engines. So we're running off the APU. We're going to retract the flaps. We'll keep all the engines running so we can retract the flaps using full hydraulic pressure. We stowed our spoilers. So the flaps will be coming up. Turn off our auto brake entirely. Flaps are almost retracted. And our leading edge slats are retracted. Generators are off. We're going to turn off our hydraulic pumps for all 4 hydraulic systems. And we'll shut down all 4 engines. Right, that comes up whenever we shut the engines off because it does. And now, spool them down. Right. So engines are stopped. And take the APU offline. APU is shut down. Shut off the bleed valves. Right. Off. Off. Okay. Right, finicky switches aside, we are going to be good. Nice. Shut down our fuel pumps. Right. Battery off. And that is powered down, cold and dark. So, yeah, we've got a 747 parked next to a whole bunch of GA airplanes because they didn't think that part through. But nonetheless, there it is. Flight from Boston to DC. Nice. Very, very nice. It took us an hour and 25 minutes from start to where we are now. Cool. Very, very cool. Big airplane. Love the 747. Flies so well. Used a bit too much runway for landing, which I'm not particularly happy about, and had to stick it down very positively. But we got it down, we got it stopped, and now we're parked up next to a bunch of Cessnas. So, hooray! this is definitely one of those things where if you're trying to show up the neighbors, you just did. Ah, yeah, look, you've got a Cessna 172. You think you're cool? Well, good morning to you. Very, very cool. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this one. Ferrari Matt 601 saying thank you very much for watching. And of course, we will see you soon.